During the American Revolutionary War, women were not allowed to fight like the men were. We hear so much about our brave men soldiers who risked their lives during the war. Little is ever said or thought about the women of the war. We had many brave women that stood up just like the men to protect themselves, their property, and their passion. Here are a few. October of 1778, Deborah Sampson of Massachusetts disguised herself as a young man and volunteered herself to the American Army. She enlisted under the name of Robert Shirtlift, and she served 3 years doing various jobs and being wounded twice, once by a sword and once by a gunshot. Her identity became known by a doctor when she became ill of a brain fever, and he sent her to General Washington, who kept her identity a secret but discharged her from the service. She later married, had 3 children, and she was granted a pension, a piece of land, for the acknowledgement of her time served in the Army. And Rachel and Grace Martin also disguised themselves as men and assailed a British courier and his guards. They stole important dispatches and forwarded them to General Greene. And the title of the Heroine of Groton was given to Anna Warner for her fearless tribute to aid the wounded men during the awful massacre at Fort Griswold in Connecticut. She went around to house to collect material for bandages for the wounded soldiers. And when Margaret Corbin's husband died fighting during the attack on Fort Washington, she bravely stepped up to the artillery, took his place and his duties, and she was later honored a pension and a suit of clothes for her heroism, July of 1779. And during the heat of the battle, Angelica Vrooman sat in a tent, making bullets for the Rangers, using a bullet mold, lead, and an iron spoon. And when Captain Hager ordered all women and children to migrate to the long cellar, Mary Hadorn said she wouldn't do it. She said she wanted a spear, that she could use it as well as a man to protect her home and when the enemy came. And so Captain Hager seen her determination and told her to sit and wait at the pickets. And so she did, until word came that all was safe. Nancy Morgan Hart was a dedicated patriot whom killed British soldiers in her cabin in Georgia to protect herself and her home. And Molly Pitcher, whose real name is Mary Ludwig Hayes, brought water to the soldiers to keep them hydrated after her husband fell. And there were many women of the military that helped. There were many women of the war that helped, including spies. They would listen and pass good key information on to General Washington. Lydia Barrington was one of these women, and she spied on the British in Philadelphia and then informed American officers. And the mother of the Boston Tea Party, Sarah Bradley Fulton, delivered dispatches through the enemy lines, and Emily Gregor rode 50 miles through the enemy's territories to give messages. And that is just a few of the many women of the Revolutionary War.